Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Slaymaker, and I'm the Country Director for Women in Tech South Africa. And today I'm very, very excited to be joined by Kerissa Varma from Old Mutual. She's the current CISO. And if you don't know what that means, it's a Chief Information Security Officer. Kerissa, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me on this live fireside chat. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Melissa, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, and we are so honored to have you. For those who do not know, Kerissa is currently also the president of Women in Cybersecurity Southern Africa. She has been with Old Mutual for a few years as the Chief Information Security Officer, as I've mentioned. And today we are here to celebrate cybersecurity, as it is actually October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we are very honored to have you and to hear all about your story in terms of your journey and to tell us a little bit about just cybersecurity in general. So I think it's such an interesting topic, being one of the technologies focused on now during the fourth industrial revolution. So there's so much to talk about. But so Kerissa, as a kind of talking to get to know how you. I want to know how you got to where you are today. And I'm sure other people also would like to know that. So tell us a little bit about the young Kerissa when she was, choosing to which university to go to, or, looking at what careers are ahead. Tell us a little bit about what your thought patterns were and how you decided to even start to go to university in a technical field, and who your mentors, or do you have any kind of inspirations back then? So please tell us your story.
Sure. So my story is probably uh, technology by accident. I guess that's what I'd call it. Because I finished high school and I got fairly good grades, and I thought, like any Indian with good grades does, that you become a doctor when you get good grades. So I applied to med school, got in, realized very quickly that I would make a terrible doctor. And I got a bursary to study technology in Malaysia. So I went over to Malaysia for 4 years. I was 18 years old. The first time or the second time I was ever on a plane was a 10-hour flight to Malaysia. Went over when I was 18, did a 4-year deeply technical degree in software engineering. So I specialized in software engineering, and came back out, and I was convinced I was going to be a software engineer. The company that gave me the bursary, when I went back in, I said, so put me into the software engineering team because this is definitely what I want to do. And the head of cybersecurity at that point in time said, no, you're coming into cyber. And I was like kicking and screaming and going, I don't want to do cybersecurity. I want to be a developer. And he said, no, no, no. I see something in you. You're going to be in cybersecurity. And he pulled me into cybersecurity. I've been in cyber my entire career. I've done I've done every role there is in cybersecurity, and it's such a broad, diverse field. And I've absolutely loved it. It's just captivated me my entire career, and I can't see myself doing anything else.
I mean, that's really incredible. I want to delve a bit deeper into, first of all, why we have these series and why we're actually celebrating things like cybersecurity. So, Women in Tech South Africa, we really are part of the global movement. And our mission is to help empower actually 5 million women and girls by 2030, which is part of the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN. So in South Africa and globally, but I mean, there is this need for more women in technology because they are very underrepresented and the problem is actually getting worse. So
Yeah.
how do we inspire and how do we get more girls and women to then choose STEM as a subject of interest or career? What would you say, in your opinion, how do we, as women in tech or as our leaders in your community, how do we get more people interested and involved today?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. I mean, I'm a female CISO, but and All Mutual is across 13 African markets. But in some of our African markets, I have no females in my team. And it's just a testament to how difficult it is to get women into deeply technical roles or senior technical roles. It's just really hard to get them in there. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking what's actually holding us back, like what is actually stopping us from doing this. And I think there's a couple of different elements. I think the first one is If you look at the rest of the world, there's about 20% of the cyber workforce is women. I think in Africa, that statistic is way underneath that. It's probably less than 5% of the cyber workforce is actually women. And we're really I think there's a couple of things. The first thing is I think we believe that technology and technical roles are difficult roles, and I think we tell ourselves that they're too hard for us to actually do. I'm not smart enough. It's something a boy does. That computer stuff is something a boy does. And we teach ourselves this, and we tell ourselves this, and in the back of our mind, we just almost exclude ourselves from even trying. And what I want to say to all the girls out there that are listening, and all the ladies that are out there that are listening, is that technology and cybersecurity are such diverse fields. You can come from any background. You can actually have any degree and you can do a job in cybersecurity. And the story I wanted to tell you is that I've got people that are actually have marketing degrees, that work in my team, and they work in my awareness team, and they do an absolutely brilliant job because they understand how people think, they understand how to influence people, but they're working in technology, they're working in cybersecurity. I've got people that are ex-military, ex-army guys that are really cool, really calm under pressure because they understand what real pressure is. And when they're in a cyber incident, it ports beautifully into that. So don't exclude yourself before you even tried. It's so diverse, it's so broad, there's so much of opportunity. You can find a niche, you can find a mechanism, and you can find something that you can make your own in technology and in cyber because it's so broad. To all the community leaders out there, to all the people that have influence over their communities, I think in Africa specifically, probably globally, but in Africa, I can feel it. We need to get into the grassroots. We need to start speaking to children at school. We need to enable teachers to be tech savvy, to be cyber savvy, because that's where our kids are being influenced. That's what they spend the majority of their day with. If your teacher has an aversion to technology, if your teacher has an aversion to cybersecurity, doesn't know how to handle cybersecurity, that gets passed on to that child that's sitting in that class. So we really need to fundamentally, at the grassroots level, do something sustainable about enabling people to understand technology and to realize that there are opportunities for them in technology. And Melissa, the last thing I'll say on this is a story I'll share. I was at a conference a few years ago, and I was sitting at lunch. I was sitting in a group of people that I didn't know, and there was students from Kailicha that had gotten girl students from Kailicha that had gotten free tickets to the conference. And one of the girls came to come and sit next to me, and I was so thrilled because she was so excited and energetic about cybersecurity, and you could see she was really passionate. She really wanted to do this. She was, I'm going to go into cyber, and I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden her face drops. And I said to her, what happened? Why the long face? And she says, well, at school, my teachers tell me my grades are good and I can do this and I can become this. But when I go home, my neighbors and my family and my parents tell me, well, there's only one role for a girl and it's not technology. And so I think, there's a deep need for mentorship, and there's a deep need for people speaking out about being successful in doing this and coming from very diverse backgrounds and beginnings, especially like what Women in Tech is doing with this conversation, because it shows the art of the possible to someone that feels very boxed in. And I'm hoping that someone listening out there today will gain something from this conversation. That when you have a million naysayers telling you you can't do it, you can do it. There's so many great role models that have done it, and it is possible.
Definitely. I want to delve a little bit deeper into what you mentioned about the roles are so diverse. And you mentioned also you've done pretty much every role in cybersecurity that is possible. So what is the typical career path of someone? So they've graduated, they've got their a degree of some kind. What is the typical kind of path to get to a CISO role?
Sure, there are so many different avenues. There's so many different parts within cybersecurity itself. I'll give you a couple of them. I think you can come and we take on at least 10 graduates a year. So I take on people straight out of university that have degrees, no work experience. And so when I'm talking about people that have come through the ranks in my team, and I'm talking from experience. So, I mean, there's multiple roles. Cyber so diverse, you can go into the deeply technical roles, and that's really protecting the organization from a breach and also detecting and responding to a breach. There we have a lot of deep technical people. Typically, you would come out with a degree in technology, but if you don't have one, don't consider that an obstacle. One of the greatest, one of the most fascinating pen testers of medical devices that I've met. She was actually in the medical field and she started watching YouTube videos because she just was curious. And that's how she started out. So don't feel like it's a barrier. If you don't have a deeply technical degree, you can still break into the industry. But that area is typically deeply technical. Those guys are configuring technology. They are, training AI. They are, those are like really technical roles. We then have a component that is an awareness type component, which deals with human behavior. How do we help people to behave more securely? And that is very much a understand how people think, understand how they behave, give them the right training and opportunities to be able to improve in a manner that they can consume. There's also a risk element to cyber, which talks about how do we measure risk, how do we manage risk, and how do we make sure we are spending in the right areas. So when you invest in the right capabilities, don't invest in the ones that are not going to have the biggest bang for your buck. And there takes a bit of savvy around thinking around how does risk work, where does finances add a benefit, and how do we actually plan and strategize to protect an organization. And then I think the last type of category I'd speak about is people that actually write policies and documents and thinking and white papers and all of the material that we actually use to promote cybersecurity within the organization and within the industry. So you can see a technical writer would be great there. Even someone like a journalist that has an affinity to technology could be great there. And that's really the beauty of cybersecurity. You can actually port mid-career as well, doing something. I've had HR people that have gone into awareness teams and have been brilliant in doing it, because it's that human element again. So, find something that interests you, watch a ton of YouTube videos before you pay for a big certification to make sure it resonates with you and it's something you're passionate about, and then go for it.
Do you have any specific references of what YouTube? Is there specific people that you follow, or good companies that have like training material that is accessible? And maybe could you share those with us? Maybe I can ask you about that later in the comments. We can share some information about where people can go to get access to this information that's freely available on the internet, right? So
Sure.
you'd be surprised how much stuff is free that you
Yeah.
don't have to pay for, including courses and all sorts. I want to sort of move on just to the Women in Cybersecurity. You're the president of Southern Africa. Tell us a little bit about what that organization is all about.
Women in Cybersecurity, the acronym is WISIS. They're actually a global organization, and they're backed by some of the biggest tech giants in the world. So AWS, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, all of the big brands support WISIS. And they, for a very large degree of time, they were based solely in the US. And recently, they've started to open up to allow global affiliates. And I've started the Southern African affiliate, which is the second affiliate of WISIS on the African continent. And the aim and the purpose of WISIS Southern Africa is to really bring all of the great stuff that's happening in the US, the bursaries, the scholarships, the mentorship into Southern Africa, and to allow people to actually experience that from Southern Africa. We are also doing a lot of events, and we are doing a lot of coaching and a lot of mentorship. I'll put some of the details of our WISIS pages, our LinkedIn pages, and things like that on the chat before I leave. Because just go out there and have a look. There's a ton of material. There's a ton of people that actually want to help people get into cybersecurity, specifically women, because there is such a dire need in Africa to get women into cybersecurity.
Definitely, and I think with women in tech as well, if our aim is also to promote those jobs and careers and opportunity and access, so that they can then be pursued by more women, especially if it's accessible remotely. So that if you have a phone or just access to the internet, then you can also be included in all of that knowledge sharing. Just looking at cybersecurity, on a day-to-day basis. So everyone has smartphones nowadays. What can we as consumers and as normal people do to be better at protecting ourselves against cyber threats or being hacked?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. I'm still trying to influence my own mom to be more cyber savvy, which, spent my entire career in cybersecurity, and I'm struggling to convince my mom. But some advice for you guys is, my number one control is always multi-factor authentication. And what multi-factor authentication is basically is you use a password, but then you will use something in addition to that. So either an authentication via your phone, or a one-time PIN, or something of the sort that allows you to have a second factor to authenticate yourself. It's one of the best controls to protect yourself, and I use it across everything. I use it on my phone, so my phone has both face and fingerprint recognition. Most smartphones will, if you don't have that, use a PIN on your phone. Use it across all your social media accounts. I can't tell you how many people have phoned me to say my Facebook's been taken over, my, whatever. It's like, it's really difficult once it's been taken over, but it's really easy to prevent just by using multi-factor authentication and setting up, really good practices in how you use social media, can prevent your account from being taken over. So use multi-factor authentication across everything: phone, Facebook, email, everything. Use it everywhere, because it actually makes it a lot more difficult to attack you. All of us have had phishing emails. All of us have had people trying to scam us. And what they're after is your password. And a password nowadays is easily guessed because people use insecure things like my name of my dog on it. But if you have multi-factor authentication in addition to your password, even if someone gets the password out of you via social engineering or via phishing, they still cannot get into your account. So I would really go, like, my top control is multi-factor authentication.
Thank you so much. Now, I think when you said my mom, I'm trying to get my mom because always they're like, oh, but this guy, I've been talking to him for months and he wants me to send him some money. His plane is not. I'm like, mom, please. Yeah, don't do that. um, so coming back to the technology side, are there any specific apps or technologies coming that you're aware of that we might not be aware of that we can get excited about? Or is there anything exciting with Old Mutual that we can look out for in terms of products to do with cybersecurity?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much on the go at the moment, both at Old Mutual and in the industry. And the world is moving towards, and it's big in tech, but it's also big in cyber, using artificial intelligence to do things for you instead of, you needing to do it yourself, I guess. And where cybersecurity is right now is, there's way too many attacks to be able for any organization to actually manually prevent. People can't prevent these things anymore. So we're using a lot of artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually look at patterns and predict when an attack will happen, or to be able to trace an attacker through an environment and stop them before they've actually perpetrated the attack. And these are called sort of, typically when we see an attack out there in the world, we get something called an indicator of compromise. And that's basically, this is how you find the attack. And our technology now automatically gets this and looks out for these type of attacks in our environments. And as soon as it sees the type of attack that's been identified, or it learns that it's behaving in a certain way, it reacts to auto protect. So it's really amazing. We're seeing a lot of, every organization out there is being attacked all the time. And just having the right technology to enable you to prevent massive harm is so critical today to be able to safeguard an organization. For all of you sitting at home, you probably don't know this, but on your mobile phone you can get free antivirus. All of us can. None of us have it on. I put it onto my mom's phone when I was last around her, but that was by force. But Avast has a free app, which is an antivirus app that you can download. You can put it onto your phone, completely free. It just updates with a little bit of data once in a while, but it protects you from a whole lot of malicious things on your phone, your tablet, etc. Which is also a really good one. It's a really basic one, but it's a really good one,
What
and
is
it's
it
free.
called? I'll put it in the chat.
It's called Avast, Avast.
Brilliant. I'll put that in there so people can have a look on their phones if they see if they can spot that they need to switch it on. So that's definitely very helpful. Thank you for that. Um, the other question I had for you, you spoke a lot about AI and cybersecurity. It almost seems like it goes hand in hand in many cases. So a lot of applications will use AI to enhance their, and to make it automated, obviously, because there's just so much going on. You have to automate these processes. So my question to you is the concern around bias in AI. So when you're looking at women faces or women of color. I don't know if you've seen a documentary on Netflix. It was recently
Yeah.
on around coded bias. How do you think those biases could potentially affect us being wrongly, accused of things? So, as an example, there was in China a man arrested because he was identified as being a person that was wanted, and then actually wasn't that person because the AI incorrectly identified him. And
Yeah.
also the cybersecurity and all of these biorecognitions. In your opinion, what are the dangers of not having a diverse coding team, a diverse future for us? I mean, just share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean all AI has bias in it, and I think that's the scary part. Even in cyber, we use AI a lot to make a lot of rudimentary decisions before it gets to a human being. A lot of those decisions majority of those decisions are the right decisions, but there are decisions in there that are the wrong decisions. And it could get to a point where we either miss something or we react to something that is a non-issue. And typically what we try to do is we use AI in very selected areas where we know we can either tolerate the risk or we can mitigate the risk by human then validating it. But the concept that you're talking about bias around people, and where we use AI to actually make decisions about whether people have been ethical or unethical or behaved in the right or wrong way, I think it's going to be a long, long way before we can all trust AI to say, we've trained out the bias or we've gotten to a point where it doesn't exist, for us to be able to get to a point where we close our eyes and goes, we just trust the AI.
No, definitely. And I think that's also the message, is that awareness, knowing
Yeah.
that we're not perfect yet, knowing we have a long way to go, and that we need more women and more diversity. And even when you're looking at, joining or changing careers, so it's kind of saying it's never too late. There's career paths that you don't have to come from university and then you start, in a company and then you work your way up. You can actually, at any age, decide I want to find out more about this because I'm interested in it. I'm passionate about finding out more. Let's go and search on, YouTube. What videos can I find out about the basics? Where can I learn more things? Connect to groups like women in cybersecurity, so that you can then get information and access around maybe bursaries or scholarships into programs that do those things, or just that. I think growing your network is important, so that you
Yeah.
just basically surround yourself with people in that industry or field so that you can
Yeah.
get information and access. And I think that's really important because we do need to make sure that our futures are diverse so that we can all have the future that we want in terms of having it all, kind of everyone being represented. We do have a few questions coming in from the comments, which I'll go through. Nolo Mokena said that she's absolutely intrigued by the conversation. A lot of us have been victims to cybersecurity and attacks in some way or another. And just thank you for sharing the messages about how to keep safe with the multiple authentications. Razana Kabri said, "Hi, Kerissa, completely agree that we need to start telling our girls that they can follow any career and that they can build a life where that they want. No, they can build a life they want, no matter where, what career path in tech, that they start out with." And Michelle Taylor said, "Thank you for sharing. I believe it's vitally important for us to educate our children concerning cybersecurity, as they are such easy targets on the mobile phones." Now, that's
True.
very interesting.
So
So,
true.
yes, you get those parental controls, but really it's so difficult to, enforce those, because it comes from everywhere, right? So that to make sure that they are aware of what to look out for, what not to click on, what not to how to protect themselves. On that sort of for children, can you give any opinion on what we can do to safeguard kids with their phones?
Yeah, I
No.
mean, so I've got two kids, 13 and 9. So you can imagine that this is quite topical in my house. And me being in security, the phones are all locked down and the tablets all locked down, and they've got limited screen time and it's automated, how when it kicks in and when it kicks off. So all of that's done and dusted. But um, you know, the thing is, our children will be exposed to things that we can't control. So I can control their device, but I can't control their friend's device. I can't control the neighbor's device that they may be sitting and using. So we have to really arm our children with information. Yes, there's a lot of technology out there. We've got the Gmail and Google sort of protection for our kids, which is really great. It allows you to set parameters as to how much of screen time they can have, which apps are authorized. You can do a whole boatload of stuff, all free as well. So that's an option, but you have to arm your kids with information. That is the first thing that you have to do. So in my house, we have conversations about cyberbullying. We have conversations about people talking to them on apps when they don't know them. And so they will come to me and they'll say, Mom, someone WhatsApped me and I don't have the number and I deleted the message. And I'm like, perfect. That's exactly what you do. Because we've had these conversations before. They understand the risk. And I tell them that I trust them. And I trust you to do the right thing because I can't be around all the time. I'm not going to be there the next time someone messages you that you don't know the person. But this is how I would like you to behave. This is how I think it would be safe to behave. And this is what would happen if we're not safe. And this is the potential of what could happen. But I think we're not having these conversations, and maybe we're not armed enough to have those conversations. I'm lucky I'm in security, so I understand these things. But I think as parents, we need to become more in tune with what the risks are that our children are facing and have those conversations. And if we don't know, we don't know. But let's go and find out together. Let's go and Google, how do you actually protect this? What do you actually do in this situation? But make it a topic, make it a conversation. I think the world is such a different place from when I was growing up, because bullying when I was growing up was someone in school, irritating me. And when I went home, I left that person at school and I came home and I could avoid that person. You can't do that today. That person stalks you, that person follows you, that person's on social media. So our kids have a very different almost pressure with regards to that tech is enabled. But it brings great opportunity, but it also brings a lot of stuff that you need to be safe with, and arm yourself to be able to use technology responsibly. I think that's the message I would leave you with. Help your kids arm themselves to use technology responsibly.
Thank you so much. No, that's definitely good advice, and I'll be definitely checking my kids' phones as well for their for that app to make sure that it's that Avast is switched on. We've got some more questions coming through from Vedantha. I hope I said that correctly. She said, "I'm inspired." Two questions that she has is one first question is, what are the major challenges for women specifically in this field? And then maybe you want to answer that, and then we'll come back to the second question. So, what are the major challenges for women in this field, do you think?
So there are very, very few female CISOs in Africa as a whole. And I think there's I'll use a story to actually explain it. I was at an event last year, and it was a remote event because all of us were working from home, and they were sending me a package for the event. It was supposed to be black tie, so they were sending you a meal and a drink and wara, and you could choose everything. You could choose the meal, you could choose the drink, you could choose absolutely everything was customizable. And so the package arrived at home, and I opened it, and in the package was a black tie for a black tie event because they assumed
All right.
I would need a
Yes.
black tie. And so I thought, okay, well, that's quite interesting. I could choose halal food. I could choose non-alcoholic beverage. I could choose, what type of dessert I wanted, but I couldn't choose whether it was male or female. And what just struck out for me there at that point in time was there's almost this need.
Assumption.
There's this unconsciousness about the fact that we need to actually still consider gender. It's almost we've actually gotten to a point where we're not conscious about the fact that there are females in the room. And so I very politely then phoned the organizer after the event and I said, great event, really enjoyed it. The food was fantastic, but I have no use for this. And I sent a picture of the bow tie. And then they then sent me an apology to say, we're so sorry. with some more appropriate gifts. But that still happens. And my experience, so I mean, I think my advice to all of you out there is call it out, because it's not someone that's trying to be mean. That person that organized the event was not trying to be mean. It's just that they're unconscious about it. And by you actually speaking up, I could have easily go, oh, it's just a bow tie. But I
Yes.
spoke up and I said, guys, look, this is not on. Be more conscious about it. The next time, try again, try harder. You can do better. And the
Yeah.
person themselves were like, oh, wow, thank you for bringing that to our
So now the
attention.
next event, they'll be a bit more organized, a bit
Exactly,
more conscious.
exactly,
Yes. It's like
exactly.
that story of the son, he drives with his dad to an interview. And on the way to the interview, the CEO of the company who he's going to interview with calls him and says, "Good luck, son." So it's like, how's that possible? Because his dad's driving him. And there's like, well, he's obviously the mum's the CEO. And people think, well, actually, you don't think like it's especially leadership roles, technology roles, leadership roles. We need to make it like it's not such a so that you automatically think, oh, it could be male, female, could be any race, any age, anyone, doesn't matter. So I think that diversity definitely needs to come across more. The second question that came from Vedanta was, what roles do women need to play to ensure that we are included in advancing AI in related tech?
Sure. I think that that's quite a difficult question. That I think that the more we are visible, and the more that we are involved, and the more that we step up to the plate, the less biases we'll have. So I think that right now, if you had to sort of ask AI to look at what does a typical cybersecurity person look like, it's probably going to come back with a man profile. So by bringing diversity into the conversation, by standing up for diversity, by making yourself present, making yourself heard, encouraging other women in, it will help with those biases, and it will help with getting away from AI looking at a typical person being a male, probably a white male as well, to be more specific. So I think that we need to step up to the plate, put your hand up, get involved, speak out, and hopefully we'll get to a better place.
Well, that's exactly why we're having these events, is to really put insights onto that. And like I said to you earlier, if we can just inspire one person today to consider a career in cybersecurity, then we've done our job. So hopefully we will definitely get to do that. There's one more person, Zulfa Otto. She said, "Hi, Kerissa. Besides watching YouTube videos, what would you advise information systems graduate to explore in as adding on to their academic degree to specialize in cybersecurity?"
So what's quite popular for people coming out of university is a Security Plus certification. It's sort of the it's sort of the an overview of cybersecurity, and it gives you a good sense of a top up, or it gives you a top up on top of your degree to be more specialist in cybersecurity. So I would say the one thing coming out of university to look at is probably a Security Plus certification, and then it depends on where your heart is. If you're looking at becoming a cloud security expert, then go and look at the Microsoft, the AWS, the Google cloud security certifications. If you're looking at becoming a pen tester, go and look at the certified ethical hacker certifications. So find where your passion is, and then look at where you want to specialize. Because, like I said, cyber is really, really broad. But if you don't know, that Security Plus certification gives you quite a broad overview.
Perfect. Now that sounds like really good advice. And coming from a recruitment background, those are also the certifications that we look for when we find security people on their CVs. We look out for those qualifications. And I see Letha1911 also said a CSSP certification for cloud is also
Yeah.
quite
So,
useful. One question I had for you just was around the fact that we have so very few female leaders in cybersecurity, especially in Africa. As a role model, how do we get more role models and more leaders into that space? And also, do you have any role models that you look up to?
Yeah. Melissa, it's such a good question because I actually want to tell you about when I first took on the CISO role. There was a ton of doubt as to whether I should take it on. So I had an opportunity to take up a CISO role, and I was umming and ahhing about whether I should actually do it. And it sounds kind of strange because anyone in cybersecurity, your career path is to CISO, and that's like what was being offered. And I wasn't sure if I wanted it, and I was worried that it would have impact on my personal life, on my kids, on my family. And someone gave me really good advice. They said to me, "Well, if you have the right support, what are you worried about?" And the one piece of advice I would like to give the guys is that any role can be difficult or it can be easy. It's how you approach that role. Set the boundaries both personally and at work. And what I had to do was I almost contracted. So I contracted with my family and I contracted with my work. And I said, "Dear family, I cannot pick up the kids on Tuesday and Thursday because X, Y, and Z." And I said, "Dear work, please know on Monday and Friday, I pick up my kids. I will be in my car. If you call me, I'll be in a meeting." I'll be in a meeting in the car. So you're going to hear road noise. So you contract up front and then it's not a surprise. And then you don't feel like you are abandoning your home commitments or abandoning your work commitments. And you can give yourself some peace of mind and relief that, yes, everyone knows I'm going to be in the car. It's going to be noisy. I'm going to be in a meeting that you're going to hear road noise, but it's okay because I've contracted for that up front. Everyone knows it. So, and the kids are not expecting me, and I don't need to feel guilty that I'm not coming on a Tuesday and a Thursday because they're prepared for it. We've planned for it. They know who's going to pick them up, and they know how that's going to work. And that has just given me so much of peace of mind because I can't be everywhere at all times. Tech jobs are quite demanding, but you can do them if you contract correctly and if you set yourself up for success. So the reason I ended up becoming a CISO almost 2 years ago was because that person gave me that really great advice about you just need the right support. And I thought about it and I said, okay, well, how do I set myself up for success and how do I make sure that this works for me? That's kind of the advice I would leave with the ladies out there.
Thank you so much, Kerissa. That answers also Rosanna's question beautifully, which was the next one is how do you, if you're going into a senior role, if you doubt yourself, how do you overcome any doubt? So obviously, I think all women suffer from imposter syndrome at some points in their careers. How have you overcome that sort of doubt within yourself?
That's such a great one. I mean, for me, you have to have a mentor. You have to have a person that's going to smack you on the side of the head and go, "What are you talking about? You can do this in your sleep," because a lot of times when you're even doubting yourself, you're going, "Can I do this? This is so complicated. Oh my goodness, like it's so overwhelming." You go and speak to a person that's really got your back, and that person goes, "But what are you talking about? You do this every day already, Just a smack on the side of the head and says, "Wake up and just do it." So that helps a lot. And then I think the other thing that I would, really say is I speak to a lot of graduates and they tell me that when they walk into a room, they feel so overwhelmed that they don't know anything and everybody else knows everything. And I say, there is no person that knows everything. No person in the world knows everything. If they tell you they know everything, they're lying to you. Nobody knows everything. So every single person in that room has a blind spot. Every single person in that room is still learning. Every single person in that room is in the room to learn something from someone else. So when you walk into the room and you feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know anything, there's so many other people in the room that also feel like, oh my goodness, I don't know anything. And you also have something to impart into the conversation. So I think those two things are really, really important to remember.
I would definitely agree with you. And it's perfect advice. That I've got time for one more question, and that really is just if you want to think back to your 20-year-old self, what is the one bit of advice that you'd give yourself, or also what is that one bit of advice that you want to share with the people listening in today?
I think the one bit of advice I would have given myself was to trust my instincts. I think I think a lot of times you know what's right for you, and sometimes you push that feeling down because you think not now or I'm not ready or whatever it is. So I would say I'd really tell my younger self, trust your instincts. Stop stressing so much about the decisions you made or you didn't make because they're all leading you to a specific point in your life. And whether you think it's a bad decision or you think it's a good decision, you're learning from it. And that's all that you need to remember. Learn from the decision, move on, become stronger. There's no, there's very few really catastrophic decisions. All of them are decisions that you will learn from and you'll become stronger. So I'll say trust your instincts, go for it, and learn from every decision. Don't stress about it.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And just a final comment from Razana. She said, Kerissa, wow, thank you so much. This entire chat has been so amazing. Thank you for being such a great role model. And Nola also says, she said, thank you. You've covered so much more than she was expecting in just in the career aspect. And she's very grateful. So thank you for sharing your story and for all of the information. And I think if there's any sort of links or YouTube clips or anything that you want to share with us, then please feel free to send them through to me, and we'll share them with our Women in Tech group as well.
Sure.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed today's chat.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all the ladies. I hope you learned something today.
I'm sure they did. Thank you so much.